even the people who oppose the genocide still call it a war, and they oppose it because they think it's bad for Israeli and not because there's a genocide of a Palestinian. Being an anti-Zionist when like everyone you grew up with is a Zionist and your family is a Zionist and like everyone are doing like an army service and whatever, it's like it takes like a really like hard mental like toll on you. It's you have to keep like convincing yourself that you are right and everyone around you are like brainwashed or whatever, and everyone around you tries to convince you that you're wrong.
And suddenly everyone around me became like Nazis. Like I cannot be a part of this. It doesn't mean that I don't love the people in my country. It doesn't mean that I wanna kill every Jew and like I don't know. It's like it just means that I'm against putting Jews above other people. I'm against Nazi ideologies. Yeah, and and that was a big deal to understand. Which sounds sounds a bit funny, but it was like, whoa, okay. It's like my whole world was like crumbling apart through that. Like knowing that like every I don't know, like finally recognizing Zionism as a bad thing, um, is like it's like really weird. I can't really explain it, I guess. But it's like everyone is a Zionist, you know.
Yes.
My parents are, my grandparents are, all my friends were, my teachers. Like I look around the window, I see multiple like flags. Well, almost a year ago, in July last year, there was a protest which we burnt up army drafts. Um, and that got really public. And I was there and I was maskless. She's stupid, truly stupid. And I've got multiple death threats from people in my neighborhood, in my city. I had to leave the city for like around 2 months. Throughout all of summer break, I spent not in my home. And when summer break ended and I had to go back to school, I was attacked. Again, also was attacked in the summer. I was attacked at a party. We have this thing that before 12th grade starts, you do like this big party, the whole grade, right? Like the night before. And I got there and like a bunch of people were there, started yelling at me and like pushing me and telling me and my friends to get the fuck out of there. And it was like if we were to stay, we would be stabbed, like that type of thing. And I had to leave school because every time for the next 2 weeks practically, I kept like getting spat on, yelled at, pushed. Free Palestine, fuck Israel. Just like embargo.
first time I was in the West Bank was 2 years ago in the same village called Ras El Ain with my mother. And we were there, I think, like a couple of months after the war started, just on a tour there. They showed us all the places where like, violence happened and stuff like that. And it's really, really disturbing to see. They have like, near the village, they have like this sort of like, it's called the slide. It's like a sort of water slide, but it's the water source of the villages around. And the settlers, they put like a Star of David there, and they blocked like Palestinians from going there and drinking water. And so that's really, really disturbing to look at. A couple of students just like started laughing at me, for every time I said, why do you think that do we have a place here for people who don't want to enlist into the army? So they started saying stuff like that. And also, like I said earlier, in the school trip, they used to on the bus, they sang songs about my mother, saying various stuff about her. And they said that like I'm a terrorist and stuff like that.
That there is a regime here that actually divides the rights differently according to the group you belong to in general. It's also true inside the Jewish community, the Jewish Mizrahi that came from the Arab countries, the Muslim countries, treated differently than the Jews from European origin. So I started to understand, and this regime, it's called in legal international language, apartheid, a regime that gives different rights according to, different groups, origins, nationality. So, of course, the genocide claim was a very hard claim to accept by Israelis. First of all, because the genocide is the Holocaust, and this happened to us, and no one can, compare it to anything else, and no one has the legitimacy to do so, and so on. So originally, when international started to call what's happening in Gaza the genocide, the Israeli population treated it as something completely absurd. But the war in Gaza continued. And the international discourse and the international legal procedures in Hague continued. And slowly, the people who are more open to hear what's happening in the world started to look again and ask questions. And then we had, I think, a difference also between legal scholars and other. I am, as I said, an advocate, so we can read the International Convention Against Genocide, which, by the way, was initiated by Israel and was adopted into the Israeli law. So it's also an Israeli law. It's not just an international convention. And it was intentionally written this way, phrased as to not limit a genocide to be exactly what happened in the Holocaust. No, it can be a genocide and not exactly what happened in the Holocaust. And I think that for me as an advocate, it's very clear to understand this. Okay, there were no gas chambers in Gaza. So is that not a genocide because there are no gas chambers? And I look at the terms in the law and I see that they apply, and that what was done in Gaza was an attempt to make a genocide. I think that for the people in Brazil that go to see the exhibition, and I'm guessing many of them are not very happy at the deeds of the Israeli army, not in Gaza, not in Lebanon, not in Iran, not anywhere else for that matter. I'm sure that many of them ask themselves, who are these Israelis, these demons, these people who do this terrible stuff? And I think Israelis, and some of them maybe became criminals and war criminals and did terrible stuff, but it's political. It's a political regime. It's a political regime that can happen to others as well. It's fascist. You have a leadership which becomes fascist. The democracy is being limited and more limited, and the good spirit of the masses of people is kept through militarism and war. And this is a danger that lies on all of us soldiers. The world is going to this direction, right? Europe is arming up. The whole world is getting closer and closer to wars. And instead of making it, about these people, it's about this politics. And we need to support each other in the struggle against these regimes that bring the genocide and the apartheid and the endless imperialist wars to our door.
Beautiful demonstration to support my proposal that's going to happen on Sunday. I'm going to refuse to join the IDF and will be sent to military jail for this. I cannot enlist into an army that's committed a genocide. I cannot enlist into an army that supports the occupation of the Palestinian people and the Palestinian land.
After being imprisoned 5 times for a total of 130 days for refusing to serve in the IDF, I've finally been released. The army thinks that if it will imprison us again and again, then we will break and enlist. It is wrong. As long as there is oppression and occupation, apartheid in the West Bank and genocide in Gaza, we will keep refusing. So to everyone who's supposed to get shafted, I tell you, stand up for your beliefs and refuse to take part in the crimes.
We went to the Yasser Arafat Museum, which has a part of history of the country. And I remember that in this museum, I was like looking at the part of history, and they talked about massacres that the Israeli army committed, for example, in the war of 1956, in which Israel invaded the Sinai Peninsula, and that Israel committed massacres of civilians in Rafah, like in Gaza nowadays, in the Gaza Strip. And it was the first time, I had been here for like more than 4 years, but it was the first time that I heard that Israel had committed massacres of civilians. And for me, that thought was like impossible. I really didn't think that Israeli soldiers could possibly kill civilians on purpose. So I saw this and I was like in shock. And then I started to check this stuff, and I realized, like, there are a lot of instances in which Israelis kill civilians on purpose. And I started to be more curious. I started, for example, also to read history books. I started with a leftist Zionist book, and I went also eventually to read books from Ilan Pappé and these other people. And again, it was a process, a long process, and a difficult process in which I started to realize that Israel does bad things. And it was very painful for me to realize it, because as I said, I really loved Israel back then. So it was a long process, and I had already committed myself to go to the army. And then something happened that changed, like gave me, was the last drop that changed completely my opinions. Is that in my last year in university, I met a girl in university, a woman, a Palestinian woman, and eventually we started dating. And this, when you start dating someone, of course, this influences you a lot, and it gave me a more personal view of the Palestinian perspective. And this gave me the motivation to say, even if I have to pay a price, a personal price, I want to go to the army. Because, before that, even though I already started to see that Israel did a lot of bad things, I didn't want to sacrifice myself for this, didn't want to pay a personal price. But when I already had a personal motivation, this gave me the power to say, okay, this is too much, and I will refuse to go to the army, no matter if I have to go to prison. I am sitting there at my job, and they are just like saying how they have to exterminate all the people in Gaza. That the people in Gaza are cockroaches. These are like literal things that I have heard in my office. And it's not like I work in, I don't know, the military or a defense company. I work in a normal office